All right, welcome back to a new episode of Two Plain Sports. As you guys can see, we don't have Brandon here this week. We've got his younger brother Jerry, so he's going to join us on this really jam-packed episode. We're going to start with the big recap of Oklahoma's recruiting weekend. Talk about a commitment that's coming up here soon that could be really important for the 2023 class, and Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, what we think and what could potentially happen if that move does come to fruition. So before we get into it, again, we just want to say thank you guys for all of the feedback, all the comments, liking our videos. We really appreciate it. It really helps us get an idea of what you guys are wanting to see, and hopefully we're driving in the content that you guys are wanting to listen to. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this with your friends because we want to continue to grow this channel and grow the community, and that's the only way we can do that with your help. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the recruitment weekend. Oklahoma this last weekend, another big weekend, picking up Caden Helms in the 2022 class and starting off the 2023 class strong with two five-star players. The highlight being Malachi Nelson, obviously continuing Lincoln Riley's quarterback run in the odd years. And then another big name in Trayon Webb, a five-star athlete that will likely be playing running back for the Sooners. Jerry, you want to start off with what you're thinking these guys can do for the team?
I think all of them are going to have huge impacts in the new. I mean, this sounds like a new offense, but this recruiting we've had lately is just crazy. I feel like our offense, everything's going to change. We're taking our game to another level. Everyone's athletic more than we've brought in. It's going to be great for the team. Everything's exciting right now.
Yeah, definitely. And add on to that, if you guys have been following, OU recruiting over the past few years, there's been a lot of hype in the 2019 class, which that was really like one of the first classes with Spencer Rattler that Lincoln Riley's gotten his hands all over, and really, it was a top 10 class. It was a very good class and a lot of hype. And granted, a few prospects haven't panned out, but a few of them have turned out to be pretty good. And then there's been hype in the 2021 and 2022 classes about arguably being some of the best classes Lincoln's been able to get. I think this 2023 class that could come together, and it's very early, and granted, signing day is over a year away. This one could arguably be the best he's ever has gotten. And we haven't even finished up with the 2022 class. Just the way it's looking, I mean, not many other programs starting on a weekend with two five stars committing to them, top 50 players. And I feel like that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I just think it's going to really start a snowball effect on the 2023 class with Malachi and Trayon Webb. The clock is starting for offensive players. And I think you're going to start to see kids are going to start hopping on pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
You've said it a few times in the last couple episodes, Brum. Once Malachi made his commitment, it was just a matter of time. It was kind of just a countdown to who could be the first wide receiver, the wide receivers we're going to end up getting. Because at the end of the day, the scholarship spots are limited. We can't just give every receiver, every player that wants to be a Sooner or that we want to be a Sooner. Not all of them are going to get scholarships. So it's kind of a race. You got to be the first one, and hopefully, we'll touch on one here in a second. But I wanted to touch off something that you said with the 2023 class. You were right 100%. There's not very many teams that are going to get 2 5-stars to kick off their class, and I think right now we're the number 2 ranked class for 2023, and it's just because we don't have as many players as Georgia, who's currently ranked number 1. They have 4 4-stars, I believe. So the caliber of player that we're going after and ultimately getting to commit is a lot higher than even the schools in the best, supposedly the best conference in the country. So it just shows what Lincoln's able to do with what he's got.
Yeah. And another thing is, Malachi and Trayon Webb, they deserve all the hype, and it's very exciting to see, but we can't forget about Caden Helms. I think this is actually more of just, he's a great prospect. He's like 6'5", 6'6", long, athletic, and has a great frame that needs to put on some weight. And, he's not quite as polished, but he's a great, he's got great ball skills and all that stuff. I think something that's really important is that's like the first commitment that OU's gotten out of Nebraska. And I can't tell you how long. I'm not saying that Nebraska's, producing a ton of talent every year, but a lot of times you would never see talent leave the Nebraska area, whether they were going to the Cornhuskers way back in the day, or more of the Midwest, the Iowa, Iowa State, or even Ohio State, more of the Midwest. You wouldn't see recruits coming down to Oklahoma because there's no Big Ten play. At least if you go to Iowa and you're from Nebraska, you're going to have a game against Nebraska, or you're just one state away. You come to Oklahoma, there's no games outside of the occasional out of conference Big 10, Big 12 game. And I think that's a statement that OU is really starting to put, get recruits across from all different parts of the country that are interested. And I mean, I really think it could be a snowball effect that we might be able to start tapping into the Nebraska and maybe even go into Iowa more and get those, those few good prospects that state produces every year. I think it's a big deal, more than just getting Helms himself.
Yeah. First, do you want to go ahead?
I mean, it's just exciting. I think I think our team is getting more respect than we've already had. They're seeing the excitement. They're seeing what Lincoln's building. They're seeing all the championship rumors and speculations. And I think players everywhere across the country are just seeing it, and they're excited about it. And I just think we're definitely going to start picking up crews from all across the nation.
Yeah. And I get to go back to Caden Helms. When we were looking at his recruitment profile on 247, Iowa not only is a school that's closer to home, but for the position that he is going to play in college, that's usually the place where you see tight ends go. That's really, I guess you could say it's tight end U, because they produce so much talent in the history of their program that it's crazy that we're starting to pull from these places that are supposed to be, the position that's supposed to go, for example, tight end. You expect a top tight end recruit to be in Iowa, but soon Lincoln's starting to, like you said, Brum, expand. Him and his staff are going everywhere around the country, not just sticking to what's safe and what they feel is going to be, a guaranteed bet in Texas and the area surrounding Oklahoma. And we're really starting to get further, with DeMarco Murray giving us some really solid ground in Las Vegas. We're clearly seeing the effect that he's having there, and we're going everywhere now, not just in the immediate Oklahoma area.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, there was a kid out of Nebraska that OU was competing for. That's who it was. Okay, so it was in the 2020 class, Turner Cochran. He was an offensive tackle out of Lawrence, Kansas. And, he actually picked Nebraska over Oklahoma. And I remember following that, a couple of years ago, and I was pretty upset that we ended up losing him because he's from Kansas. And that was on the Scott Frost hype train kind of deal. It seems like anytime a decent program hires a guy that was successful elsewhere, they pick up a few recruits. I mean, you look at Sarkisian, and then you look at Tom Herman, and even Charlie Strong. They typically land a few splashes because the kid was a top 50 player overall, and he's really good. It came down to OU Nebraska, and I think he's probably getting a great education, but he's probably regretting that a little bit if he's wanting to win. But that right there, I think if that happened now, wouldn't happen. Like if he was coming into this 2022 cycle, I don't think OU would lose out on him, because I think OU's getting, they're getting more in that area, that Kansas, Nebraska area, and they'd be able to pull a guy like him out. So we'll see. And this also speaks to Nebraska not even being in a top school consideration, because I think it was Miami, Arizona State, North Carolina, and Oklahoma for Helms. They weren't even the top four. Nebraska has fallen off, and I know they left for the Big Ten as far as more money, and there's some prestigious universities as far as education goes, but it's going to be tough to recruit kids to go play Nebraska football anymore with not playing, not being in the Big 12, playing Texas schools. And I just don't think we're going to see Nebraska return to prominence unless something drastic changes. So
for sure. Do you have any final thoughts before we move on to the next one?
No, other than these two, the two 2023 commitments basically lead into what we're going to discuss next. But Helms is going to be a great prospect, and maybe in a couple years we'll see him running down the field, pretty tearing it up for the Sooners.
Yeah, hopefully we might see some 2 tight end sets out there with him and Stogner or Haas. But next thing, so today is the 21st. Earlier in the afternoon, Makai Lemon announced his commitment day is going to be August 7th. So that's another guy that all Oklahoma fans should look out for. He is, I believe he's 6 feet tall. He's a big guy, big body. He is Malakai's high school teammate. Right now, he is ranked as the number 1 athlete in the 2023 class. So he does play on both sides of the ball. Right from what I've read, the scouts are really confident in him being versatile once he gets to the college level. We're really unsure on where he's going to be playing for the Sooners. I think it'll be dependent on need, but it's safe to assume that he'll probably be a receiver, so that they can keep that Malachi and Makai connection once they get to Oklahoma. Brum, you want to start us off with what you think this kid could be?
Yeah, and I mean, Malachi committing, we've been kind of talking about this in the last few weeks or the last month, that once Nelson, the domino of Nelson, that this secret recruitment and all that stuff finally came out, which it wasn't very secretive. I mean, it seemed like most people assumed that he was going to be a Sooner, that the clock on the other offensive positions was going to start. And obviously Webb is a running back. He's an athlete as well. That's what he's listed as, but he's being recruited as a running back. And so now the receiver position is on the clock. And I would imagine the Sooners are only going to take 3 receivers. Granted, if you need to take 4, if it turns out it's all these great players, you can't turn a player down that's a 5-star, you figure it out. And so what I'm curious of, with Makai Lemon being listed as an athlete, and most likely you're right, he's going to be a receiver. But what would be interesting is if they offered him in more of a different role or a hybrid role where they can make the scholarships work, because there's going to be 3 other guys that the Sooners are leading for, or at least perceived leaders right now, in Brandon Ennis, Jalen Hale, and DeAndre Moore, the number 1, 2, and 3 wide receivers in the country. And then you've got Makai Lemon listed as an athlete. Do they take those 3 receivers, in an ideal world, if they all wanted to be Sooners, which is very real, is a very real possibility, which is hard to even fathom, to be honest with you. But if they all 3 wanted to be Sooners, I could see them somehow taking Makai Lemon as some sort of a hybrid and making the scholarship work, but he'll probably play, running back and, slot and all that stuff. I mean, he won't be actually carrying the ball, but maybe, lining up in the backfield as more of a gadget player. It's just the amount of talent and keeping that connection. There's not many high school teammates like that want to be college teammates, which is pretty cool to see. Jerry, do you have anything to add?
I just think it's exciting. I mean, it's awesome for Malachi and Makai. They're just gonna kill it in high school and college. I think it's safe to say. I mean, I'm not gonna be Makai's looking promising, but it's just exciting. You pretty much covered everything I was gonna say.
Yeah, looking at his recruitment profile, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Billy Bowman, with the versatility he had in high school, playing on both sides of the ball. And for the most part, I feel like when you have really athletic players in high school, they're probably going to play both offense and defense, and maybe all 3 phases of the game. But it's hard to find guys that are actually excelling on both sides of the ball, and people see them as, potential top talent in Power 5 schools on both sides of the ball. Like it's not very common, and we already have one in Billy Bowman. And if we can secure Makai Lemon, like you said, Brum, in the very real possibility of getting the 1, 2, and 3 wide receivers in the 2023 class, then he might become a gadget player. Or if Grinch really likes his ball skills, he's a big guy, he's fast, he's the typical Grinch cornerback prospect. Why not move him over to the defensive side for a year, or after a year being in the offense? He might fit better on defense.
Yeah, which that's crazy to think that you're that good that you can play on both sides of the ball. But yeah, that might be a way that they make the scholarships work. I mean, you can't turn a guy like Makai Lemon down. You know, you could offer him as a defensive back, and like how the Sooners offered Billy Bowman. You know, we're offering you as a defensive back. We're going to give you the opportunity to compete on the offensive side. If it doesn't work out, you can be a DB and compete for a starting spot there. And that seems to be what's happened with Bowman. Yeah, I mean, you can't turn a guy or four guys away because you only have 3 scholarships for the wide receiver spot. And maybe could they possibly in the 2022 class only take Luther Burden and Raleek Brown as wide receivers, you know, and lead and not take a third wide receiver and leave that scholarship for these 4 guys and make it work? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know, but they probably will end up taking a transfer guy if they don't fill out that third scholarship. I don't know. They'll make it work, but the time starts now. And I'm calling it here. If Makai Lemon does in fact become a Sooner, I would not be surprised that by the end of August, one of the 3, DeAndre Moore, Jalen Hale, or Ennis, also commit. And so I really think if Makai Lemon jumps on, one of the 3 will jump on with him. I don't know which 3, but I think one of them will pull the trigger and join.
Yeah, I think my prediction is going to be Ennis is coming and after Makai, closely after, just because him and Trayon Webb seem to be very good friends, just from the interactions that they post on Twitter. And obviously, I don't know how close they are, but it seems like they know each other enough that they're comfortable, you know, going back and forth on Twitter.
Yeah, and I would agree with you that Ennis is the most likely. I mean, Trayon Webb and Ennis grew up playing football together. They play, you know, they're best of friends, and they've talked about playing together. So I would think that. And you want to talk about best friends and playing in high school together and being close is Richard Young. I know that's a whole different guy, but in the 2023 class, he's the number 1 running back. They talk Webb and him have talked about playing together. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's pretty crazy with what this class could turn out to be. Yeah, Richard Young. So he's the number 17 player in the country.
Yeah.
There could be 7 top 30 players committed to the Sooners. I think 7, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there could be 7 players.
There's already articles being written about Oklahoma's potentially historic 2023 class, just because of the 2 guys that already committed in it. And it's crazy to think, like you said, we could get the 1, 2, and 3 receiver. We could get the number 1 running back along with him. And let's not forget the number 1 overall recruit in that class, being Lobeus Overton, is currently crystal ball to Oklahoma. So it's insane to think what Lincoln Riley and his staff are doing. And I think, just to quickly go off topic here, I think it's him being so young and his staff being young. You don't see very many old people or not old people, but, you know, older, more tenured coaches on the staff, because Lincoln wants his staff to be able to relate to the players, you know, ex-players in the OU program or in the NFL, or mainly kind of what he's staffing, along with really good position coaches that were proven before they got to Oklahoma.
Yeah. I mean, and also helping for the Sooners, Lobeus Overton's dad played for the Sooners, I believe, in the 90s or early 2000s. So, you know, a little bit of luck there, but he was definitely impressed with that Champ U barbecue visit. And speaking of that, not this coming weekend, but the 31st, we're going to be following up with who could be on the second Champ U barbecue list in the next week or so. We'll keep you guys posted for that, but that's going to be another big recruiting event.
Definitely. We've got a lot of good things coming, so make sure to keep watching. Before we move on to I think the hottest topic of the day, Jerry, you have anything you want to add on here?
I would just say that my crystal balls are Ennis and Moore. I think Hale's the long ball out. Moore from Vegas. I think with Malachi Nelson, I think we're.
You cut out there, bud.
Yeah, you're cut out. Well,
your mic a little closer.
I don't know. I
think what he was saying is that Hale is kind of our long shot, but Moore is kind of the guy that we're going to get more than likely because we have such deep roots in Vegas right now, from what I was understanding. But I could be wrong. Hopefully his mic
Are you
comes back
back?
on.
Yeah, y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
We're gonna pick up. I think with Malachi Nelson, we're gonna go crazy in the West Coast. I think we're gonna start picking up Vegas, California, and Arizona. Just like when Caleb Williams committed, he was from the DMV area. We started going crazy in the DMV area. I think same thing that happened with Malachi committing from the West Coast.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I didn't even think about how Caleb kind of helped out get established in the East Coast.
Yeah, Jerry, I appreciate your name, Horns Down. That's a pretty good name on the Zoom meeting.
Yeah. Well, that's a good little segue into the next topic. I think it's probably going to be a topic that we're going to discuss for the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, because it just kind of came out of nowhere. A big bomb dropped this morning, I believe. Oklahoma and Texas are looking into joining the SEC. Now, there's not much that has actually been, any solid reporting. It came out of the beat writer for A&M in the Houston Chronicle. All he said was that he has a source that's close to the situation, that Oklahoma and Texas have inquired about joining the SEC. Now, there's obviously going to be a lot of back and forth. There's going to be a lot of debate on if it's a good idea for the Big 12, on if it's a good idea for the SEC. But I think what is ultimately going to happen is we're going to see a lot of A&M. They're going to be popping up a lot in the news in regards to this story. But before I go any further, what do you think, Rum? What do you think this is even a good idea for Oklahoma?
I mean, as much as I think I can speak for most Sooner fans, as much as we don't like the SEC because of the SEC bias, the top echelon of the SEC conference is elite. I mean, when you think of Alabama, obviously they're out on their own, but I mean, Georgia is very good. LSU, they just recently won the national championship and ran us out of the arena. And then, Florida's getting better. I'm not a big fan of Dan Mullen, but their program is pretty good too. So, I mean, you look at the top four, and I mean, A&M, I have a hard time calling them a top program. They're very similar to me as like a Oklahoma State. Like, they're going to be good, but they think they're really good, but they're actually really not. I mean, they couldn't really win the Big 12, so they went to the SEC, and they haven't won the SEC. And so it's just, I don't know, it's kind of odd. But I personally think I would love to see a move to the SEC. I think the Big 12 needs to be dissolved. And I think I saw something earlier where if the Big 12 did dissolve, you could disperse the teams that are in right now and make like 4 16-team conferences, I think it is. And obviously Oklahoma and Texas would go as a pair to the SEC. And I think I saw the Big 10 was going to, someone said something about getting the Big 10. It would be like Iowa State and someone else like Kansas and a few other schools would go to the Big 10, and then a few more schools would go to the Pac-12, and just create 4 power conferences. Because, and then also you think about it long term, if we're going to the 12-team playoff, it's literally the 4 conference champions would get the bye. And then, you don't have that 5th conference champion that's like, oh, well, we're getting shafted because they didn't think we're as good as the other conference champions. And, maybe they deserve to be that 4th spot. Then there's really no debate who the top 4 teams are at that point. The money would be way better for Oklahoma and Texas. Not that we really need the money. I also think the TV scheduling and the game times would be significantly better. And because, they would need to realign the East and the West. But I mean, thinking about it, I mean, it would be like Texas A&M, LSU, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, and I'm trying to think of one more that could be in the West, or Mississippi, someone like that, or Tennessee. Make the East and the West 8 teams each. Keep OU and Texas in the same division because you want to play that game every year. and then keep Alabama and Georgia on the East. So it can kind of turn out that there's really two or three premier programs in each conference. Yeah, I think it would be great. It would then open the door as far as more SEC, or the guys that really think they need to go to the SEC to play defense, which I know Oklahoma's changing that narrative, but there would be no excuse, or there'd be no Alabama wouldn't have that that one up. Well, you can play in the SEC. This is where we play real defense, rather than going to the Big 12 where it's sometimes a track meet and you get exposed. We're all in the same conference at that point.
Yeah.
And then I think A&M would be the biggest loser in this situation, because that's what they try to use over Oklahoma and Texas. At that point, it's all even playing field. And I think Texas A&M, not that they're really good now, I mean, they're not bad, I think they would be the biggest losers in this situation. Jerry, what do you have to say?
I think it'd be awesome for Oklahoma. I mean, it makes it better for the NIL deals. I think players will get more money from the SEC broadcasting and then views they get from social media and everything. I think it opens up more recruiting. It's more competition. Competition is always more entertaining. I think it's just a win everywhere for Oklahoma. I'm definitely rooting for it. I think it's a go. I think we should do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree 100% with both of you guys. The biggest thing that popped out to me when the report first came out was the NIL stuff. Just because I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, Nick Saban and people in Alabama were talking about how Bryce Young, their new quarterback that hasn't played one snap of football, is about to break $1 million in endorsements. I mean, Spencer Rattler was the starter for Oklahoma, Heisman favorite for this upcoming season, and he got a $2 million endorsement from one company, and I'm sure he's going to make more than that. But imagine if he was in the SEC, because big companies covet having that, having an association with them. I think more so than any other football conference. Fair or not, that's just how it is right now, and going there is going to help the kids a lot. And in regards to recruiting, it will be big, because of how much more money we'll have to expand our reach with scouts, and being able to maybe hire one or two more coaches so that they can help with recruiting. Because right now I'm assuming that these guys we have on staff are just very stretched out with their time, and probably have very little time to just relax and sit back for a second. Because as a college coach, if you're not coaching, you're recruiting. If it's sending text, being on Twitter, being on a plane to visit a guy, or having a guy come in and visit, and you're touring him around campus or the facilities, your plate's always full. So that extra money could help a lot. Probably not give them any more time, but it would relieve some stress potentially for these coaches. But yeah, I am 100% on your guys' side, that and move to at the SEC for both these schools is going to be big. It just sounds like right now the two biggest obstacles are the two teams that recently left the Big 12 to go to the SEC, Missouri and A&M, are both really just going against the idea, probably because they know that they have even lesser of a shot to win the SEC if we get in there, both Oklahoma and Texas. But A&M has been very clear that they want to be the only Texas school in the SEC, and that really seems to be their biggest gripe against this move. If it weren't for that, then I think that their AD wouldn't mind as much, but they feel like if Texas comes in, they're going to be at some sort of disadvantage, which I don't believe is true, but maybe they know. I'm not, an Aggie fan, so I guess I can't really speak to that, but who knows?
Yeah. And adding on to that, thinking, I don't know how quick this move could really happen. I know there's TV contracts, maybe some buyouts and whatever, but if you think about it this way, if this move kind of coincides with the playoff expansion, could you imagine having a schedule, a 12-game schedule? We play 3 out of conference games, and we play some cupcake one week, and then we play like a Nebraska and another just kind of mediocre school, and then we open up and we've got a schedule of Florida, Georgia, Arkansas, Missouri, Vanderbilt, whatever, and you fill it in Texas, and you fill it out, and yes, you might lose a game or two, you might, but you're on a 12-team deal. You're not going to get punished. You're going to be in the playoffs. You might not be a top 40. You might not win the SEC every year like we are in the Big 12, but you're going to have a very tough, tougher team, more tested team, and elite competition playing every single week. And they better get rid of, if we do go, I don't want the cupcake game in November either, like the Alabama playing the Citadel every year. I want the full on, you play 3 out of conference, 9 in conference games, play the SEC championship, and then we go to the playoffs, a 12-team format. And there's very good chance that there would be 4 or 5 SEC teams in the playoffs. So you might see LSU twice, you might see LSU 3 times in a season. I mean, you play regular season, you can meet someone in the SEC championship, and you can meet them in the playoffs. I mean, that would determine the true champion, and it would be quite something to see. And there would be no arguing at that point. Most championships will come out of the SEC if Oklahoma and Texas go. It'll be basically the SEC and the Big Ten. That's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've got Clemson there. Don't get me wrong, you've got Clemson, but the 2 power conferences would be the Big Ten and the SEC. So.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it earlier, but whenever you were talking about, dissolving the Big 12, it does 100% make sense just logically with how the playoffs are going to be. But it also helps with just geographically the travel. Like we won't be going to Ames, and we don't have to fly all the way to West Virginia. It'll be easier travel for the teams, especially in an SEC where you got divisions. We're going to be closer to our opponents overall. The only thing that's bad for Oklahoma is we don't get an automatic W with Oklahoma State, but I think we can live with it. I think they've got enough losses for a lifetime.
Kind of getting bored of beating them.
Yeah, then that we can. We're okay that doesn't happen every year.
It's always fun though to be able to play them. I mean, as much as we don't like Oklahoma State, it is a fun game, and it's fun to beat them. I mean, it really is.
I saw some rumors saying that it'll be hard for OU to move because they want to keep OU and Oklahoma State together, though, because I forgot who said it, but someone said that that's also a big issue.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Well, I think OSU knows if Oklahoma leaves and goes out on its own with Texas, Oklahoma State's going to have a very hard time with recruiting and the revenue and TV deals, and it's just not going to be in their best interest. So I could see them trying to hold on for dear life, but I don't know. It would suck to in the rivalry, but we can play them in some non-conference games, and while they're playing in the Pac-12.
Yeah, they might even have a chance to win in the Pac-12, so it really could benefit them if they thought about it, but they don't, because my theory is they assume that if Oklahoma leaves the Big 12, somehow the city of Norman just magically moves to a different part of the country where we're not close anymore. But at the end of the day, like this will benefit not just OU, but the state of Oklahoma will probably benefit from it, or the surrounding area for Norman will benefit, because there will be a lot more people traveling in from, A&M, probably from, Alabama. You've got Tennessee. There will be a lot of people coming in to visit for these games. It won't just be, obviously it'll be a packed house every single time, but we're going to see a lot more tailgating. Campus Corner will be even more packed than it already is. It'll be a good time at the end of the day.
Yeah, I would like it to be 3 out of conference, 6 in conference in your division, and 3 in the conference out of your division. That way you play most of your divisional opponents, and then you get a mix of the other divisions. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to add? I feel like there was one other thing, but I can't remember.
I don't know, other than we'll be watching this like everyone else will be and see what might come out. I don't know. It seems like the statements from OU and Texas today, and it just seems like there's something happening. Like it actually seems like it might be real. I don't know. They were really odd and with not really addressing the situation. I don't know. It seems weird.
Yeah, very secretive.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I remember now. So to respond to that, you would think that they would just straight up say this isn't real if it wasn't happening. So it does seem like there's some at least thought that this is a possibility. But I think what I was going to say is the earliest this could probably happen, I think, is in 2024. So the beginning of the 2024 season, because of the TV deals. I think that the Big 12 is locked into Fox until then, and ESPN gains full exclusivity to the SEC in 2025. So they would have to figure out just TV deals. Obviously, the SEC is going to want more money because now you've got two more blue blood schools coming into the conference. So that'll just be another obstacle that they'll deal with. But from what it seems like right now, it seems like it's going to happen and potentially inevitable. Um, I've had people text me that it's a done deal, that it's just a matter of announcing it, but I don't know how legit that is. So like Brum said, we're just going to keep following the story like everyone else, and keep reporting back with what we learn and what we're reading up on. But if that's it for you guys, we really appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far, make sure to like, subscribe, like I said earlier, share. We'd really appreciate you guys sharing the video to your friends, people that you work with. Like I said, we want to grow this, so that's the only way we can do it, with you guys sharing our videos. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.